Don't call her cute, don't call her feisty. She's a rebel, she is nasty, she is brave. She isn't honey, sweetie, sugar pie, baby. And don't you ever say that she was well behaved. Don't you ever say that she was well behaved. And don't you ever say that she was well behaved.
Did you see the email that we got?
What email that we got?
We got an email in the from a listener. Did you see that?
Oh, our constructive critique?
Yes.
Which I thought was a very good critique.
It was a very good critique. It was that we don't say the full name of the person often enough in the podcast so that you kind of like forget who we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think honestly part of it is because sometimes I think I'm pronouncing it wrong.
It's a lot of foreign
and that
names.
will definitely happen today, but we'll try to maybe at least definitely say it maybe the beginning, the end, try to say it in the middle.
Try to say their names in the middle. Mine's very easy.
Okay. Mine will be a little trickier.
I went to college with that girl.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
She actually, when I visited Tulane, I stayed with this girl who I met at Hillel. And this was one of her suite mates.
Oh, cool.
Who emailed us, and I thought she was so cool, and she got me high for the first time.
Wow.
So she was cool, and then I became cool.
Wow. Did you ever get anyone high for the first time?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either, actually. I'm sorry I'm not looking at you directly, but the sun is right behind you, so I think I'm just going to look forward and listen to your voice in my ears.
Okay.
We need to get shades is the thing here.
Yeah, get curtains.
Yeah, we're working on it.
These windows are so big, though.
I know. At first, I didn't want to get curtains because I liked all this natural light, but there is a period of time from like 11 to 1-ish during the day where it's like impossible to sit on the couch because it's so sunny.
You can get sheer curtains where you still get the light, but it blocks out the shininess.
It's like not too bad. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Or I think maybe just like shades that we could like put up and down.
Yeah, the problem with blinds, which we have, is that they're really a pain in the ass to clean. So just keep that in mind.
Interesting point. That's a good point. Yeah, maybe sheer curtains are the way to go.
Because Shaggy's had those blinds for 15 years, and we're at the point where we will just throw them away.
Yeah, well, that's also like maybe fine. That's like 15 years is a good lifespan, I'd say, for an item. How expensive are blinds? Are they expensive?
I have no idea.
I don't know either.
That's one of those like items that I've never thought about.
Never purchased. Yeah, never.
They've always just existed.
Yeah. I know. That's why for these we haven't done. I mean, there's a lot we haven't done in this apartment, but like that's one of the things that I'm like, I don't know about this.
Yeah. Well, and there are so many things now that are kind of hard to find just the day up. Like we used to have this sort of like everything store on our block where just everything was, and I realize it's because of Amazon. Like now that doesn't exist anymore. They closed down. But the other day we were trying to buy vacuum bags and couldn't find any, like, because we're not gonna, what are we gonna do, drive to Bed Bath & Beyond for a fucking...
Yeah, I guess you just have to, or you have to have Amazon Prime. Do you have Amazon Prime?
He does.
But then you get them still 2 days. That's not...
Can't get it the day that you were thinking of vacuuming.
No, 2 days later. Yeah, that is a bummer.
So look out for those monopolies.
Yeah, have you watched The Long Mirrors yet?
I watched the first 2.
Okay. There's a later one that I read an article that they think it's like Amazon related. I finished them all last night. Very spooky, but it was good.
I can't binge watch Black Mirror.
I like have to because it takes so much for me to like watch one of them, and they're all so upsetting to me that like once I'm going, I just go. And then that's what I did last night. I just watched them. Well, I'd already watched 2, and then I watched 4 last night.
Jesus. No, I can watch 1, and then Shaki and I have to have a long discussion about it afterwards.
I'm watching it by myself. Although Julie, yeah, because Louie doesn't watch anything with me, or at all. Julie was texting me about it though. She was like way behind. She had just watched 2 last night too, so we were talking about them.
Okay.
What did you think of the first 2? I liked the first one. I thought it was good.
I liked the second one better. What was the second one? Oh, the second one was fine. The second one, at
Archangel?
least it at least to me felt like an episode of Black Mirror. Again,
Yeah,
that's my problem with the first one.
You're going to be very upset, I'd say, this season.
It's infuriating because I'm not watching the show for a happy ending.
Yeah, I would say buckle in. I think you're not going to be so happy.
That makes me so mad.
That I liked.
I want the bleak dystopian, this is how technology is ruining you.
Yeah.
And is going to ruin like, that's what I want to see. Because that's what I've been screaming since I was 12. And like, wouldn't get a smartphone until I moved to New York.
Oh, I remember because my phone died when we went on tour together. Because I had
and I got lost in
you
Cincinnati.
Still used the fucking you still used the benefits of it.
But only on that trip.
You were going to do a cross-country tour with MapQuest.
Yeah, baby.
All right.
With maps. Just with, an atlas.
Oh, my God.
And I would have missed every show.
Yeah.
No, come on. Compass is a little much. I'm just preparing for when I'm going to be on The Amazing Race.
That's great. You should be on The Amazing Race.
I want to so badly.
Who would be your partner? Have we talked about this?
We haven't talked about this. I think I could do a number of people as my partner.
What would you say your strengths are maps and what else?
And
like
not
you
giving
kinda
up.
need like a physical person or like a person who's willing to do gross stuff.
Well, I'm good at puzzles.
Okay, so
I'm
you'd
totally
be like
fine
maps
at
and puzzles.
And I'm good with gross stuff. I'll eat anything.
So then you need you're pretty strong. Do you think?
I'm pretty strong. I think like the last episode that I was watching, they had to put together a speed bike or like a mountain bike.
Mechanical
things. And I was like, oh, Shaki would be so good at that.
You need a mechanical person. Yeah.
Somebody who can like fix the car when it breaks down.
Yeah,
and like that kind of stuff I'm not great with.
Okay.
So
that would be good for Shaki.
Yeah, I think he would be a good partner. I kind of have thought like Julie would be a good partner.
Yeah.
Because she'll also do everything gross.
She'll do anything gross.
And
yeah, especially
with
for
a
money.
smile on her face.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a good person for
but
sure.
But I really think the biggest thing with that show is like what gets people is giving up because they get discouraged by something and without realizing that like other teams are also going through shit.
Yeah. Wow, that's really just like a metaphor for life.
Yeah, man. Facebook isn't real. Like what people are projecting, that's not how they really feel. Mm-mm. And but so the first episode of Black Mirror, I felt like I would write a different
spoilers,
ending.
I guess, if you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. But I feel like I liked the story. I would have changed the ending to make it more bleak.
Yeah, I liked it because it had a good ending. The way that Julie and I talked about, she said she was appreciative of the fact that with Black Mirror, it won't always be happy. So when it does end happily, sort of happily, she feels okay. But she hated San Junipero as well.
Great.
She hated it and thought it was bad for the series, and I loved it and didn't care that it didn't fit with the series. And didn't you say you liked it but not for the series?
Yeah, I think as a standalone thing, if somebody had just made that and presented it to the world, I was like, that's really cool and beautiful and lovely.
Right. See, she hated it on all, and which is funny because then we were like, oh yeah, Ariel's like a mix of both of us.
Yeah, I really bridged that gap.
Yeah, I was like, I loved it no matter what. She was like, I hated it no matter what.
I was like, well, with context.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
The first one, they were both good. I mean, they were all, I don't know. I'll be interested to hear what you think. This is probably boring for people who haven't watched them, but
can I tell you what I watched that everybody should watch?
Yes.
If you have access to Showtime.
Okay.
Is Rob Gronkowski's stand-up event. Do you know who he is?
Yeah, he's a football player.
Yeah,
Wait, he did a stand-up special?
Oh my God. Okay, it's not exactly a special. He did like a Rob Gronkowski presents kind of thing.
Okay.
But he does like 12 minutes of stand-up at the beginning, and it is the best thing I've ever seen.
Are all the comics like Dane Cook over and over again? Or
No. It's like decent. It's like Boston comics who are like good and great and very funny.
Like local people?
No, I mean it's like like guys who have been doing it for 30 years, like Road Dogs. I forget who. I honestly didn't make it. I didn't make it. I just watched his. But when the opening sequence is like them on a party bus, dancing around a stripper pole with a few like women dressed as referees, but like, you know.
So all the comics were women, or?
Yeah, they're all very diverse lineup.
Yeah, cool.
There is one black guy on it, but again, I didn't watch the actual comedians. I just watched Rob Gronkowski.
And how was that?
It's so delightful in how, I mean, it was his first time doing stand-up.
Why?
And it's what you would think a jock doing stand-up is.
Yeah.
It's great.
He's particularly busted in the head, I feel like.
You think so?
Have you heard him talk?
Yeah, I just watched him talk for 12 minutes.
He sounds like he's had many concussions.
I think that's just the Boston accent.
Maybe. No, I don't know. He sounds like his brain's functioning at like a slower pace than normal. Which is, look, he's made millions of dollars from getting hit on the head a bunch of times. So like, live your life, but definitely feels like it's taking toll.
Yeah, when I was watching it, I was like, it is good that you're figuring out other ways to make money.
Yeah.
You got to do that.
Be a personality.
Retire early from football and preserve your brain a little.
I'm sure. I bet someone else wrote the jokes for him.
You know, I think there might have been a couple of the jokes that were written by somebody else, but then I think he really just ran with it.
And just rambled? And
did some things off the top of his head. I wouldn't even call it rambling. It's like he tried to tell a story. It felt very look, stand-up is hard to do. I'm not knocking anybody who tries it. I'm just saying don't televise your first time. But also thank you so much.
Your open mic,
but thank you so much for televising your first time, because I enjoyed it so much.
I'm excited to check that out. I don't know that I have access to Showtime, but I'll check.
Okay.
Maybe it's on YouTube or something.
Or next time you come over.
Yeah, I'll watch it.
We'll do that.
You would watch
and
it
hopefully,
again.
Oh, yeah. I'm gonna. Well, because I got home last night from my trek, from my journey into the city.
It took Ariel 2 hours to get into the city yesterday. The trains are real bad. And
Molly didn't even make it to my apartment.
I tried to go to Ariel's house yesterday, and I just turned around. Yesterday was the day I decided I'm moving to LA this year.
Yeah.
So that's great.
I understand it. It makes me sad, but I understand.
For doing that, MTA and the 0 degree weather.
It was so bad. Shaggy tried to, because he also had a spot in the city last night. He tried to come back, saw that it was like a 30-minute wait for the train. So then he just went and took waited for the bus, because on the MTA app it tells you when the bus is coming.
Yeah.
And so the bus pulled up, but it's the first stop, and the bus driver was like, "I'm not leaving until 10," and it was like 9:45.
Oh my God.
And he was like, "Well, can you just let me on the bus, because it's so cold out here?"
And she wouldn't.
And she goes, "No, I can't." And he was like, "Are you kidding? It's negative 10 degrees outside." Like, he was like, "I get it. I understand that you're not like technically allowed to, but like, be a person.
Oh my
be a
God.
fucking human being."
Yeah, this city doesn't. The subway is broken. The subway's broken.
The city is broken.
It doesn't. You can't. The city isn't good without the subway.
I just kept thinking, like last night, I was like, if it's going to take me 2 hours to get to fucking Gramercy, I might as well live in Connecticut. Like, what's the point then?
Yeah, I'd like to no, it's really crazy. I'd rather sit for 2 hours in traffic in my own car in like a comfortable temperature.
Yeah. Boy, if you haven't watched Black Mirror and don't live in New York, this has been unrelatable.
Well, you're probably having a more pleasant time than we are on both accounts.
It's so cold.
So cold. Well, yeah. Who goes first again?
I go first.
Oh, yay.
Hi, you're listening to Well Behave, a podcast about women who have been erased from history.
Yeah,
and how dare they? We're bringing them back.
You never heard of them. Now you have in your very own iPhone headphones or whatever you have.
Or Android headphones.
Does Android come with headphones?
It does not, but I have...
Wait, Android phones don't come with headphones?
I don't think so.
That's rude.
I mean, it's hard to know because I got mine secondhand from Shaki after I dropped mine down an elevator shaft.
Right, I remember that. Yeah. Every time I go in an elevator shaft now, I'm like have a fear of that happening.
It's very scarring.
It's a real traumatic experience.
Excuse me. I'm Ariel Elias. I'm the one who burps.
Yeah, she's the one who burps. I'm Molly Ruben-Long. I don't burp or poop because I'm a lady.
But what is a lady, you know?
I don't know. Let's find out about some ladies.
All
History.
right. History has its
Herstory.
voice. Aw. Femininity. Femistery.
Oh God.
Femistery. Ooh.
This is going off the
All
rails.
right. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
Okay, so did you know that my person it's a legend. She may have not existed, but
Cool.
I like to exist in a world where she did.
Cool.
But according to legend, for about 2 years there was a female pope.
What?
So her name was Pope Joan.
Damn.
So basically this took place like a long ass time ago. This is in the Middle Ages, which were not a hotbed for feminism, because this is this is year 1000, give or take a couple hundred years. So just for context, the Crusades are just starting. Catholics are like large and in charge.
Man, what a shitty time to be alive.
Yeah, right. I feel like the smell
Ugh,
would have been so rough. And just like I feel like if you get a paper cut, you're like, well, I guess it's been good. It's been a good run.
Right.
But
Which maybe you're like happy to go because everything's so gross.
Yeah. You have to like, that's like when the saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater came from.
Yeah.
Because everybody would take a bath once a year and it would go in order from like father, mother, kids, and then the baby would be the last one. So by the time the baby bathed, the water was black and you wouldn't be able to see the baby anymore. So that's where that phrase comes from. Most people in Europe weren't literate yet. That didn't start happening until the 1400s. And for peasant people, like you and I, the law actually restricted their access to formal education, because if regular people had access to learning, who would work the fields?
Right.
Plus, like, they just didn't have time, because every waking moment is spent trying not to die. So officially and legally, women were subservient to men. To be on the streets alone without like a male person meant that you were a sex worker. Women were in charge of running the household and raising the kids and taking care of the animals, but still doing hard labor when it was time for the harvest. Excuse me, sorry. And the only other acceptable forms of work for women were brewing,
Tight.
because beer.
That's surprising, I guess.
I mean, if you're doing all the cooking, you might as well do all the like making alcohol.
Making of any kind of foods.
Also,
or
this was the time where
the water was too bad.
Exactly.
They would only drink beer.
Yeah. Spinning, because they could make clothes.
Wow. Women always love spin class. Wow.
Women be spinning clothes because they can't shop for them yet, because it's the Middle Ages. Or midwifery. They could be midwives, which are doctors. They're midwives are doctors.
OBGYNs.
Yeah. It's, we throw on that different name on it because we're like, women can't be doctors. We were the first doctors.
For sure.
And the only place for women in the church was in the convent as nuns. So, okay, here's the legend of Pope Joan.
Which is like still true.
Yeah. Yes. Nothing has, and this may be part, okay. The legend of Pope Joan is that in either the 9th or the 11th century, a girl named Agnes, which unfortunate, but a girl named Agnes was born in Mainz, Germany. I think that's how you say it. Mainz, Mainz, M-A-I-N-Z.
Mainz.
English missionaries had established a monastery nearby that had lots of books and would become a center of education. And it would have been really easy for a young girl to disguise herself as a boy and start studying, which is like what people think she did, because like everybody has to put on these like flowy clerical robes, and also like everybody's malnourished.
This is very similar to Joan of Arc.
It is very similar.
She like went to war.
Yeah, there was. I think at this time, it looks like at this time there are a lot of instances of women disguising themselves as men.
Right.
And it seems like because like, it's the only way out.
Yeah.
And nobody's really checking.
Right.
So like, but like nobody has curves, nobody's buff at all. Like everybody kind of just looks the same, like androgynous, and everybody's really dirty. So like your faces all kind of look the same. According to one text, our girl was, quote, led to Athens dressed in the clothes of a man by a certain lover of hers, which I take issue with because at this time I think she was like 10 or 11.
Yeah.
So the
That might
word
have been more
lover,
common.
it's like I know people died at 25, but are we cool with using the word lover for
A 10-year-old.
a pedophile?
Yeah.
Basically, which like I get everybody then was a pedophile, but that doesn't make it okay.
Yeah.
So Joan then became known as Agnes, I guess, like her name is Agnes, and then she takes on the name John Anglicus, which is, and then she later becomes known as Pope Joan.
Okay.
Once they find out that she's a woman. Spoiler. She's like super smart. She studies and she learns, and soon she has no intellectual equal. She became a secretary to a curia, which is a papal court at the Vatican. And my cute little joke that I wrote that I'm just reading and not loving, but even in disguise, women have to be the secretary.
There you go.
And then
her name is Joan, like on Mad Men.
Oh yeah,
The secretary.
man, she's so wonderful.
Yeah.
That character, love her. Okay. And then she becomes a cardinal and is just like hanging out. Like she's super smart. Everybody is cool with her. She's pretty progressive, but like not making a huge ruckus. And the Vatican at the time is crazy. Men are killing each other to become the Pope. They're scheming and forming alliances. It's like politics on steroids and crazy. Mary Malone, a former nun, said from this article that I read, quote, popes killed each other off, hammered each other to death. There were 12-year-old popes. We have knowledge of a 5-year-old archbishop. It was a very odd time in history.
What? A 5-year-old archbishop.
Yeah.
That's so cute, though. With the little hat. Oh, my God.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Oh, baby.
So cute.
Baby.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I love green.
Look, I've always said Mass should have nap time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Said it before, I'll say it again.
It basically is.
Is it? Have you ever been to a Catholic Mass?
Yes, in Ireland. And I mean, I've been to like Catholic funerals. I guess it's not the same as a Mass. I don't know. It's all very long. It's not for me,
I think
really.
Mass is part of a...
Yeah.
There is a
you
Mass.
You have a Mass.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I've been to a bunch of those this year, sadly.
I feel like you've had a rough year.
I mean, it's okay. I'm okay. But my dad had a rough year, I guess. But... Yeah, no, but so I've been to some, and then in Ireland, they're very long. There's a lot of kneeling and standing. I'm sure this is like a very hacky premise, but a lot of kneeling and standing and sitting and standing and kneeling and sitting and standing.
Yeah, I went to a Catholic wedding once, and I kept thinking it was over.
It's not over.
And it was never over.
Yeah, I've been to Catholic weddings, too, in Ireland, and that's long. It's very long.
And
I'm about to be a bridesmaid in my
Ooh.
cousin's wedding, and I think it will be a Catholic wedding, so that's I'm gonna have to like be standing for that whole thing, probably in heels. I'm actually just realizing that now, and I'm pretty terrified. I'm gonna have to get some like some true insoles, or maybe I'll just buy like aerosols heels or something.
Yeah.
Buy like some like old lady heels, because I don't know how I'm gonna stand in them for that long.
Yeah.
Ooh, I just thought about that.
And take an Advil right when it starts.
Ooh, that's a hot tip.
Yeah.
I'm going to need you to remind me of that.
Okay.
But that's a really good tip. Not for like 2 years. They just got engaged.
So we have time to prepare.
We do, I know. I'll have to like start working on it now.
I've never been a bridesmaid before.
Me
Have
either.
you?
This is my first time.
Oh.
And it's going to be like very traditional. I'm like nervous, but I think it'll be fun. It'll be
great.
Yeah.
I've alienated most of my close female friends. So
I know this is family. And none of my like friends, like my platonic friends platonic. That's not what I mean. Like non-family.
Yeah, the
women in
female
my
friends
life.
you're not trying to fuck.
Yeah, the female friends I'm not trying to fuck. Not like you, baby. Oh.
Hey.
None of them would have bridesmaids. They've all, like the weddings I've gone to, they didn't have bridesmaids. They just like have like friends everywhere.
Yeah,
Although I do have another friend who's like planning on getting engaged, I think this year or next year. And she told me that she's going to have 12 bridesmaids.
12?
Yeah.
Why?
Because she has a lot of close girlfriends. and she just wants it. And I was like,
There's no way you're close with 12 women.
She is, because she has a lot of like disparate groups. I think if I was someone who was like committed to having bridesmaids, I don't know that I would have 12, but I would have a lot. I would have a lot because I have like a lot of girlfriends from different worlds, kind of, you know?
Yeah, I do. I think I'm just not that great at keeping in touch.
But I still consider them like close friends. Like if I were to have bridesmaids, it would be like my cousin, and then you and Julie,
Aww,
and then Kate.
That's what I wanted. That's all I needed to
and
hear.
then like 2 or 3 friends from college. That's already like 6 or 7. I guess maybe that's probably where I would stop. No, maybe my friend Courtney. I don't know, man. It doesn't make, I don't understand. I'm close with a lot of people. It's just like too much.
Like, I'm just not. I have like some very close, like people who I would still probably call my best friend.
Oh, Emma and Rachel, I could have to think of them. Probably that's another 2. So yeah, I'm already up to like 9.
People who I see once or twice a year. It's like,
I still see these people once or twice a year, but like they're my best friends from high school or college or whatever. You know, and I still love them. But I'm bad at keeping in touch, but then I just like always assume whenever I see someone, it's like we're the same way.
Yeah, same.
I'm like that kind of friend where I'm like, I'm not going to write you every day. I'm just bad at that. Mm-hmm. But then whenever I do get to see you, it's like we're still good friends, you know?
Yeah, we'll just pick up where we left off. I haven't changed that much.
Yeah.
I'm still disgusting.
And also it's like with social media, it's like, I know what's going on. Fill me in on the rest of the details. But anyway, all right. So,
okay. So yeah, all this crazy shit's happening. Popes are killing each other. And Catholics are crazy. Mm-hmm. And so, when Pope Leo IV dies, the fellow cardinals elect John Anglicus, aka Joan, as the next pope. She reigned for 2 years, 1 month, and 4 days, the whole time concealing that she was a she, until one day she is riding horseback as part of a 3-mile papal procession when suddenly she feels pains in her abdomen and goes into labor.
What?
Because the lover who brought her to Athens remained her lover. And like, there was no birth control.
So he was the only one who knew.
I don't even know if he knew. I mean, it doesn't say.
I mean,
he was the only one who knew that she was a woman.
Her.
Yeah. I thought you meant that she was pregnant.
Oh, no.
I don't know if anybody knew that she was pregnant.
Yeah.
And so all of these people are watching this procession as their pope is going to fucking labor and like having a baby. So, one version says that Pope Joan died in labor. One version says that she was stoned to death as the procession continued along with the baby because people were furious. And one more version, which I think like is the least likely to have happened, is that she was kept alive and imprisoned while her son went on to become a bishop. But like probably not that one.
Feels like the died in labor is probably what happened.
Yeah, or stoned to death.
But like as it was, like when you're in labor, it's not like it just pops out. Like it takes.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing.
Like how would the people along the sides would have known what was happening? Yeah.
I mean, she's just like on horseback and suddenly like goes. Yeah, it's like I feel like she would have gotten off the fucking horse.
Yeah, I feel like died in labor.
It honestly sounds like what men think happens when you have a baby. Yeah, is like if you get on a horse, it's just gonna come out, right?
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know, and I don't think they would have like the wherewithal to like realize what was happening. They'd probably just think she was like the Pope was sick or something. Like the baby wouldn't come out right away. I mean, I guess if the baby came out, they would freak out and stone her.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. So I read a book called Pope Joan when I was younger, and it's like a novel, but based on this legend. And according to that, she like that theory is that she knew she was pregnant. She tried to like with like herbs or whatever have an abortion, and she miscarried when she was like on this horse or whatever, and that's how everybody saw. Why it's because all the blood
and when you miscarry, there's like a little fetus that comes out.
Yeah, there's well, it depends on how far along you are, but yes. Okay, so I'm gonna do the argument against this legend and the argument for.
Okay.
The argument against is, one, it was totally dismissed by the Catholic Church, which like take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
Because they have a history of saying,
why would
like,
they want a woman? They wouldn't like that.
Right.
So of course they're going to say it's not true.
It could have been anti-Catholic propaganda that was spreading at the time, which was like definitely a tactic. And once it was written down, it would have been copied by other monks, and like the story would change and become more and more exaggerated. Because like it's not like they had copy machines, right? It's just like once something's written down somewhere, people
written telephone.
write it again. Yeah, exactly. The supposed date of Pope Joan's existence was changed. I think like one said that it was in the 800s, one said it was in the 1100s, which is like a pretty big gap.
That's a big gap, yeah.
Sorry. The story wasn't recorded until a few centuries after her existence. Plus, the first person to record it said that he was unsure of the truth or the source. So it could have just been like a story that was told to him, 300 years later, and he just wrote it down.
Yeah. Well, basically, like the gist of the argument against is like nothing's very verified. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the most reliable stories comes from the manuscript of Martinus Polonus, and generally his writing is super verifiable and credible, but it turns out he didn't actually write the account of Pope Joan. It was added in by somebody else after his death.
Okay.
And the timeline doesn't really fit. According to the records, there was no gap between popes that she would have supposedly been between. And even if it's not anti-Catholic propaganda, it could have just been made up by the Catholic
But
Church.
that timeline is written by the Catholic Church, right? So like...
It's written by, there's like, but there are a few different timelines. Like there's the Catholic Church's official timeline of things, but then there are also these like other people who are writing down whatever. But yeah, the idea that, but there was no gap between, it's like, well, you could have just changed that.
Yeah.
And it could have just been made up to teach a lesson to women that original sin will always come back to bite you, and like, don't even think about trying to obtain power. So it could just be like a storybook.
I see, like a
thing.
not an allegory, but like
an allegory.
Is it? I never know
I
the
think
difference
so.
between all of those words.
I think
A
allegory
tall
is
tale.
it. Yeah. Okay. So here is the argument for the intersection where Pope Joan supposedly gave birth shortly after became known as Vicus Papissa, which means Street of the Female Pope.
Wow.
Processions for years after would avoid that intersection. A bust of her existed that was then changed in the 14th or 15th century, literally scraping off her name and putting another pope's name on it, pretending like it was him all along.
Oh, but they could like now look at that and be like, no.
Yeah, I mean, there was like, it's like there was a bust of her, and the Catholic Church was just like,
yeah, this sounds like a cover
go
up.
ahead and erase that.
A literal cover up of the statue. Just cover it up.
Yeah, and like
something else.
The Catholic Church again like has a history of gaslighting. So
Yeah.
In 1415, Jan Hus, some dude, was on trial for heresy. And he argued that there was no need for a pope because everything ran totally fine when Pope Joan was in charge. And the guys trying him said that his argument proved nothing about the independence of the church, but they didn't ever dispute that there had been a lady pope.
Wow.
So they were
Lady
like,
Pope.
yeah, they were like,
Man,
you're
why
wrong.
is there a show called
but
Young Pope, but there's not a show called Lady Pope?
Let's write it. We got to write it.
We should write a parody of Young Pope that's Lady Pope.
Yeah, although then I have to watch Young Pope.
Yeah, I don't want to watch Young Pope.
Shaki watched some of it, and I would catch a bit. The acting's great, but I gotta stop talking so much shit. There's no confirmation that this is what they were used for necessarily, but there are these chairs called God, this fucking Latin, sedis stecuraria. And they're these big old chairs that the popes use that have a hole in them that a lot of people believe it was to check for testicles after this happened. Because they were like, we can't just have, these
pope.
lady disguises. Let's make sure that there are balls dangling. But most sources I saw said that this was a myth, and that the chairs were like that either as bidets or birthing chairs but also like, why would you have a birthing chair for a pope? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like whatever. But okay, I think I just really want to believe that this happened, and so I'm very biased.
Yeah, no, this sounds. I believe it. I'm on board.
Again, she wasn't the only woman who would have disguised herself convincingly in Catholicism, and there were over 30 examples of women who dressed as men who ended up becoming saints. And then there was okay, I didn't fully understand this, but I guess like in the numbering of the popes, when you take a name, you become like whatever, like John the 15th or whatever.
Yeah.
And there, I guess like when there was some pope who came in after like John the 19th, who then took, I could be getting this wrong, but basically it's like he then took John the 21st. They skipped the 20th because some people think it's because the church had excluded, they had like written off Joan. But some people think it was just like a fucking typo and like something was mistaken, which is like, yeah, that could happen.
Yeah.
So, and that's Pope Joan.
Wow.
I really like the book that I read when I was 12. My sources were Medieval Colloquium, History.com, this article called Who Was Pope Joan by Evan Andrews, Ancient Origins, and this ABC News article where I got most of this, which was looking for Pope Joan.
Wow.
And ABC, that one seemed to be like the most in favor of her existing. I think something in there said that there are like 500 documents that mention her, like historical documents.
That's a lot.
Yeah. But the other ones were like much more, like the majority of what I found was very skeptical
Was like,
of her existing. But like, I don't think that necessarily, like, I think we've like just because the majority says this didn't happen doesn't mean it didn't happen.
The victors write history,
and we
the victor is not female popes.
We really love to forget women.
Yeah, and especially in a church that's like the whole setup is like women are less than.
Yeah.
So and then it's like, wait a minute, what? So they're gonna obviously want to cover that up.
Like how humiliating for you.
Yeah.
If you like,
if your whole thing is like women aren't people, and then the woman becomes a pope, and you're like, oh fuck.
Yeah. So that's Pope Joan.
Wow, that was a great one, Pope Joan.
Thanks, man.
Pope Joan
Came to me in a dream.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was like struggling with who to do.
I know. I always like, it's always a struggle. I need to just let go and just do someone.
And I had like an idea of who, but it would have required so much reading.
I know, that's the thing. There's some that I'm like, I'm going to do this on a week when I do this in advance and I have time to do it.
And then I went to sleep and I woke up, I guess I like woke up with, do you ever wake up where you just like have an idea or like a joke or whatever? I woke up and I was just like, Pope Joan.
Yeah.
She came to me.
That's great. I'm so glad.
Excuse me.
Wow, you are
Sorry,
burpy today.
I know.
That's
but
okay.
They're tiny. They're not.
That first one was not tiny.
That's true.
All right. I'm going to take us, since it's so cold, I'm going to take us to the beautiful islands of Hawaii.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm there.
So, just like this is like a bastardized brief general his background information, because I didn't know much about Hawaii actually. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, damn, it is weird as hell that this Polynesian country is a state.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in Hawaii feel that way too.
Yeah, they do. I learned it's so weird and crazy.
Who's that woman? She's on NPR a lot on like This American Life. I think her first name is Sarah. She has a tiny, like she's like sort of a tiny voice.
I'm not sure.
But she wrote a book about the history of Hawaii that's supposed to be very good and funny.
I'd like to read that.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah, after this I'm like very interested. But okay, so basically just very brief and just in terms of like, because the story I'm going to tell kind of centers around the time when Hawaii lost its monarchy and then became annexed by the United States, and it wouldn't actually become a state until 1959. But to back up, so like the first European settlement attempts in Hawaii came by a man named James Cook, and he kept like trying to like colonize all these different Polynesian islands and was like succeeding for the most part. And then he got to Hawaii and they fought back and they killed him, which is tight. And then and then basically like for the 1780s and 90s, a bunch of different chiefs on the islands like battled for power, but eventually they unified under a single king. So by like the late 1700s, like turn of the century into the 1800s, they have a king, right, of the United Hawaiian Islands. So now fast forward, yeah. So my woman is, okay, here we go. I'm gonna pronounce it.
You got this.
Liliuokalani.
Oh,
Liliuokalani. She was the first Queen of Hawaii and the last sovereign ruler of Hawaii, sadly. Not a great track record for women, but it's not her fault.
it never is.
It's not her fault. It was bad timing. But okay, so I'll tell you a little bit about Liliuokalani. So this is a hard one to say all the time, but I'm going to try. If you just Google first Queen of Hawaii, you'll also find her. Anyway, so her early life is... she was born, her original name was Lydia Kamakaea. Oh God, I'm sorry. In 1838 in Honolulu. Her mother served as an advisor to the king, and her family was
like an Ivanka Trump kind of like advisor to the king type thing? Okay.
Yeah, except like hopefully he's not going to become our king. But her family was like a high ranking family, but they weren't. It wasn't like her father was king. She was educated by missionaries and toured the Western world, which was very common for Hawaiian nobility. And this is how she learned English. So she was always very fluent in English. She served in the court of the king Kamehameha IV. And in 1862, she married an American-born son of a ship captain named John Owens Dominus. They never had any biological kids of their own. I read one source that said that they adopted some kids at one point, but they never had any biological kids. So
don't shop, adopt.
Exactly. And so her husband became a Hawaiian government official and later would become the government of Oahu and Maui. In 1874, her older brother is chosen as the king. So basically, I think the way it works is like if they didn't have an heir, if the king dies and doesn't have an heir, then a king is like selected to continue on the monarchy.
Do you know who selects the king?
I'm not exactly sure how the selection process worked, but it didn't seem as like in England it's like so strict, like there's a line of succession.
Yeah.
Where it seemed like if they kind of run out of it, they like some group comes together and figures it out. So I'm not exactly sure what that process looks like, but in some fashion her older brother is chosen as king, which means that the heir is her younger brother. But in 1877 her younger brother dies, and so she becomes a royal princess. And that's when she changed her name to Liliuokalani. That's her royal name. So that's also 1977, interestingly, is also the year that she wrote a song called Aloha Oe, which eventually becomes the Hawaiian national anthem. And it's based on a time when she was walking along the beach or taking a horseback ride along the beach in Oahu, and she saw a lover's embrace, and she wrote this song.
Oh.
And actually in total she wrote over 160 songs and chants in her life.
Damn.
So she was also a songwriter in addition to a queen. Anyway, so
singer, songwriter, queen.
She triple threat. So she like at this point she's like being groomed to become the first queen of Hawaii. In 1881, the king goes on tour and she sort of acts as regent in his place. Her mission, she works to organize Hawaiian schools. That's kind of like her.
And wait, is the king at this point still her older brother?
Yeah, the king is her older brother. Yeah. And her younger brother has passed away. So in 1887, she and her brother, the king's wife, they serve as Hawaii representatives at Queen Victoria's Crown Jubilee in London.
Ooh.
Which sounds goofy as hell. And that's when she like
I feel like there's like stupid hats involved.
Oh my god, there's gonna be so many hats. A Crown Jubilee. British people are silly.
Last night at New York Comedy Club we watched a video about Meghan and
Markle?
Yeah, and whichever prince she's marrying, and about how they're in the Illuminati.
Oh,
yeah,
probably. If there is one, like, why not? So President Grover Cleveland is there, and just an example of like how they knew each other, which will come into play later, kind of. So anyway, in that same year, 1887, an elite class of mostly white business owners forced the king to sign something that eventually gets called the Bayonet Constitution.
And it was called that doesn't sound like something white people would do. It sounds really out of character. Making you sign.
Yeah, and it's called this because they like held him at held the king at gunpoint, basically.
I don't buy it.
And they were like, if either you do this or we're gonna depose you, like we're gonna throw you out. So the king signed it, but this constitution basically stripped all power from the monarchy. So it really made them like a figurehead.
And this was this at the Jubilee?
No. This is the same year. So the Jubilee thing was just like a thing. I guess
just a fun thing that happened.
Fact, yeah. But this is the same year. So she's like off, like being prepped to be the queen. Meanwhile, her brother is getting like totally stripped of his powers by these white businessmen. And she is like very vocally opposed to this Bayonet Constitution. She's also very opposed to something that happens that year called the Reciprocity Treaty, which granted commercial privileges to the U.S., including the control of Pearl Harbor. And basically, it guaranteed them access to the U.S. for all kinds of products grown in Hawaii. So it's just like basically a terrible deal for the Hawaiians.
It was like, hey, you guys have goods, now they're ours.
Right, and it was literally just like a group of them that were like, we're going to control this now. So this stance against these things made her unpopular from the beginning, like before she even took the throne, made her unpopular with this like band of white businessmen,
which is how you know you're doing something right.
Exactly. I think the other example is there was a time when Oahu had a smallpox outbreak, and like early on in her queendom, which hasn't happened yet, but it does soon. And like in 1891, she becomes queen because her brother dies. But so at one point, like Oahu has a smallpox outbreak, and she closes the ports, and the businessmen get mad. And she's like, I had to close the ports because there was fucking smallpox on this island, you idiots. But they were like, but business.
But the bottom line.
Yeah. Bottom line is you're heartless.
Did you see that? Sorry.
No, it's fine.
What's his face wrote some article about how like how the Somali refugees in America just like aren't working out for America because it hasn't been economically productive.
Who said that?
So what's his face? David Frum. People keep replying to him calling him David Cum, which is fun. I think it's pointless, but it's fun. But they're just like, the point is to help people,
right?
It's not like, to not fucking make money off
capitalism.
Of people who, Jesus. Okay,
that's awful.
Just, it's just nice to see how change has happened.
Yeah. Oh God.
Just a reminder, we've been making the same arguments for decades,
forever. It's like over 100 years. So as soon as she becomes queen, which is, the first female ruler of Hawaii, which is like kind of cool. But she immediately begins working to reverse the Bayonet Constitution and write a new constitution that would restore the monarchy. Meanwhile, there's like not much about this, but her husband dies in 1891. It sounds like they had a very I don't know. There's like nothing about their relationship like anywhere basically. Seems like they were like, all right, we're married. Anyway, so he dies. She keeps living. In January 1893, a group of same group of businessmen, American European businessmen, have the backing of the U.S. minister John Stevens and a contingent of the U.S. Marines. They stage a military coup and depose her. So she ends up surrendering because she is hopeful that President Cleveland will reinstate her, and she doesn't want to cause any drama. She's like, I don't want any drama. I don't want violence. So she ends up stepping down because there's Marines in her house.
And, sorry, is there a king at this point, or nobody's king?
No. She's the ruler. The king dies. Her brother died in 1891.
Right, but how come they didn't elect a new king or whatever?
Because she's just
I got this. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, she was in line. it's just the way it worked. I think because they had only really had a monarchy for 100 years.
Okay, so
or
the
so.
rules
So
aren't
it
like
just like
so.
it just had never. I think it just had never happened. Like the reason that her brother had become king is because they knew that there was a younger brother, but then the younger brother died, so she was in line.
Okay,
that was just like the way it naturally was. It's like more like if a king, like when the other king died for her brother to become king, I think it was like because they don't have kids or they don't have kids or siblings,
like
they don't have anyone
else
to appoint. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was, I think from what I can tell, it didn't seem like the fact that honestly the fact that she was like the first woman like was like almost kind of hid. Like I think it's just the way it worked out, but that in 100 years there's usually enough men to take it, and then finally there wasn't, basically.
Got it. Okay.
No, it's confusing a little bit. But it wasn't like a whole to-do that she was the first woman, I guess. So anyway, in January of 1893, they stage this military coup. She surrenders. She's like, writes to President Cleveland. She's like, yo, dude, what the hell? And
remember that wonderful dance we shared at the Jubilee?
Yeah.
I imagine they danced.
We had some fun times at the Jubilee. Hook a sister up with the monarchy back. And President Cleveland is like, okay, I'll reinstate the monarchy if you promise to give amnesty to everyone involved in the coup. Ugh. And initially she's like, no, but then finally she accepts. But ultimately it doesn't matter because President Cleveland doesn't have control over these people. It's like kind of what it comes down to.
Oh.
So, but like after the coup, that whole like businessman crew sets up a provisional government, and like basically President Cleveland's like kind of powerless to like make them do anything. So they set up this provisional government led by a guy named Stanford Dole, who becomes the first president of the Republic of Hawaii in July of 1894, and they deny her reinstatement. They're like, no. So in 1895, there's a loyalist named Robert Wilcox who leads a failed insurrection to restore her power. And because of this failed insurrection, she is placed under house arrest and charged with treason. She signs a formal abdication in exchange for the pardon of the supporters of that revolt, that, insurrection. And she later says that it was invalid because she signed it using her married name, not her royal name.
Oh, hell yeah, girl.
But
Find those
they were
loopholes.
like, we don't care.
Yeah.
It's all this stuff that's like, but I didn't sign it right. And they were like, but fuck you. Like, it's over. So that's kind of sad.
But I like that she had the forethought to be like,
she did, right. She was like very much like, she was very like strong and stubborn and that kind of thing, but unfortunately it doesn't turn out great. So she declared her niece her heir. So she's still just like, as this provincial government's going on, she's still like, but I'm a queen though. And they're like, all right. So she like declares an heir in her niece. And in 1896, they travel to DC.
Was her niece like,
I think her niece was like, I think her niece was like, yeah, this is how it should be. Okay. Fuck these guys. I don't really know, but my guess is that she wouldn't have picked someone who was like flaky. She would have picked someone who was like on board with her movement.
Yeah, when she says she's gonna meet you for lunch on Saturday, she fucking shows up for lunch on Saturday.
She's coming to all the rallies, Anyway, so she declared her niece her heir, and then in 1896 they traveled to DC and tried to convince President Cleveland to restore the monarchy. It doesn't work, and she creates this movement called the Stand Firm movement against annexation. But eventually, President Cleveland is succeeded by William McKinley. President Cleveland's like very anti-imperialist. William McKinley is like, nah, dude, take it all. So once McKinley gets into office, shit's not looking good for Liliuokalani. See, I tried to say it again.
No, that was good.
I always forget like one syllable. I always say Liliuokalani, but it's Liliuokalani. There it is. It's like an extra syllable that I don't remember. Anyway, so bad news when McKinley gets into office. He's very unsympathetic to this cause, and they annex Hawaii. The United States annexes Hawaii in 1898. Her niece dies very young at the age of 24 in 1899, just a year after the U.S. is annexed. At that point, she retreated from public life and ended up dying in 1917 of a stroke at the age of 79. Her remains are at the Royal Mausoleum at Muanaha'ala. I think that's how it's spelled. Anyway, somewhere in Hawaii at a royal mausoleum are her remains. And there is actually a modern movement to restore Hawaii to native control. It's called the Hawaiian Kingdom Movement. And yeah, they believe that like the U.S. is illegally occupying Hawaii, which is like not a bad argument. Yeah, I don't know. So I guess
sound too
I don't know
off.
all the information about the movement, but it does exist. There's definitely people in Hawaii who don't feel like they should be a state. They feel like they should be their own country. And actually, another fun fact I learned, there's only 4 states in the United States that were at one point their own country. Hawaii, Texas, Vermont. Oh, God, wait. I'm forgetting what the last one is. California.
Really?
Yeah.
California was its own country?
Apparently. That's
Vermont?
what Wikipedia said. Yeah. Apparently it was. Well, maybe I'm making that up. I don't know. That's what Wikipedia said. And then obviously like the original 13 colonies was like a country, but that,
Sure.
individual states. Yeah. So there you go. Liliuokalani. My sources were history.com, the History Channel website, biography.com, and Wikipedia.
Can I ask, what does it mean to like annex something?
I think that just means that it's like your territory, kind of. I think like I kind of was thinking this in relation to Puerto Rico, which is like, this is all very like ignorant. This is all sort of speculatory, so please correct me if I'm wrong on this kind of thing. But I was thinking like, I think it was like a territory in the way that Puerto Rico kind of is now. Yeah. Whereas it became a state in 1959. It kind of which is interesting to me. I didn't realize that that Hawaii wasn't a state when Pearl Harbor was bombed.
Mm-hmm. It's also it became a state so late. It's why people are like, well, Barack Obama was born in Hawaii. You can't be president because it wasn't a state yet. And they're like, no, it had become a state already. But it was like, it's like within 2 years, I think, from when he was born. Yeah. Also, I'm just remembering this movie. I think it was maybe like The Big Green or The Little Giants, or one of those like soccer or football movie. It was a football movie with Rick Moranis, and their big play that they came up with was called The Annexation of Puerto Rico.
Oh my God.
And it won them the game.
Aren't there a lot of like famous Puerto Rican baseball players? Oh, no, this is football though. I don't know.
But yes, there are.
So that would have been better for a baseball movie. They fucked up.
Yeah. Maybe I wonder if I go back and rewatch it,
how racist it will feel.
Yeah. If there's like a specific move that they do where it's like, oh yeah, there were like 5 ships that did that or something.
It's like, how unwoke was this movie? That's just a fun game.
Yeah. What holds up to learning?
It's progress.
Oh no.
Anyway, sorry that was a little like choppy, but
no, that was great. Say your name one more time. Okay. And this isn't a test.
Liliuokalani.
Liliuokalani.
It's spelled Liliuokalani. So probably the easier thing to do is just Google first Queen of Hawaii. She'll come up. She's the only one. Queen of Hawaii. I bet it'll pop up there.
And Pope Joan.
That's been great.
That was good. I didn't know that story at all.
Yeah, I didn't know either of these. These were very, very fresh, very new. I usually don't know. That's the point of this podcast.
It really is. Because we don't know.
But now we know.
Okay. Highlighting women who are doing cool shit today. 2 of them. One is Erin Jackson, who is the first Black woman long track Olympic speed skater. She just made the team and just learned how to. She stepped on the ice for not for the first time, because I think I read somewhere that she did dabble in figure skating when she was little, when she was in middle school or high school. But basically she's been on the ice for 4 months and just made the Olympic team for speed skating. And I really like speed skating. I'm so excited for the Olympics.
Yeah,
I love it so much.
I never really give a shit, but
it's so fun. I love to just I think it's fun to just unapologetically be like, go America, because this doesn't matter. It's not a war. But also yeah, these sports that I don't give a shit about otherwise, but it's like, it's just fun.
Yeah.
So I think that's so cool that she was
That's
just
amazing.
like, she
That's
did like
truly
inline
amazing.
skating and roller derby and stuff. And then she was like, I wonder if I could be an Olympian. And then just
That's
fucking
so
did
wild. I'm like, I wonder if I could go to the gym one time.
it. And in this weather, no.
No, I was like, maybe I'll just do ab workouts in my house after this.
And then the other woman, I have changed my goal to just gain weight to get through the winter.
I saw that on your
I
internet.
am not kidding.
I mean,
I'm so cold.
Yeah, but I don't know that like body fat really helps that much.
Yeah, it does.
I don't know.
That's why blubber keeps you warm.
Yeah, but like, I'm still cold when I'm like at my fattest. I'm just also depressed. Like,
well, I'm depressed when I'm thin anyway, so I might as well try to get a little warmer.
Might as be happy
and just eat pasta without caring.
That's true.
The other,
but also I don't know how you're gonna fatten up because your job is walking.
I'm not really gonna fat. I mean, I'm just.
You'd have to eat like a ton.
I'm just letting go a little.
That's good.
And then the other woman is Megan Gans, who is a writer and like a very funny comedy writer. But Dan Harmon put, and like sort of a trigger warning if you don't want to hear any more about the Me Too stuff. But basically, and I don't know what he did to her, but Dan Harmon, who is like the creator of Community and Rick and Morty, basically put out this like apology. It's like, look. Apologies are great. You need to apologize. It's not the only thing you have to do. It's like one of many things that you have to do. So putting out this like, I apologize for whatever I did. It's just whatever. But he tweeted out just like, 2017 was a rough year. Like, hopefully I'll be like less of an asshole in 2018. Like I'm realizing I've done some really bad things and I'm like trying to reflect. And Megan Gans, who worked on Community, tweeted, like she replied to him and was like, do you care to be more specific? Because you did some really horrible things to me. And like,
Wow.
And he was just like, I've addressed this on my podcast and blah, blah, blah. And she just like, she didn't let up. She was very,
Did they ever say what she's referring to, or?
I know, but there were like some hints in there. Like I think she said something about like she can't watch the first episode of TV that she ever wrote because he's like tainted that memory for her. I think he also, it sounds like he belittled her a lot and made her feel like she like wasn't good. And I think she said something about like, I can't give my phone number to a boss anymore without worrying about it because of you. So like, I don't know exactly what he did and I'm not going to speculate, but it seems like he like, some kind of use of her phone number in a way that was not appropriate, whether it's sexual or just was also an
badgering
asshole.
or whatever. Yeah.
And like, he's known for being an asshole, but I think it's very noble and wonderful that like, she just like called him out to be like, you don't get like this is very performative if you're not actually going to if you're not actually going to do anything about it. And also to do that to say that to him, who like his fans are the worst.
Yeah.
like people who love Rick and Morty, like those are the guys who fucking like the Szechuan sauce bullshit. Like they're the worst.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just like, it merits like acknowledgement, and she's great for doing that.
Good for her.
Good for her.
Cool.
Good for you, Megan.
Yeah.
So, those are my women.
We have a show, you and I, next Saturday, which we have to
do.
write something for.
We do.
The 13th at Caveat is called This Day in History, and everyone on the show is like going to be talking about something that happened on the 13th, on January 13th in
at
history.
10 o'clock.
The show's at 10 o'clock. And
and Molly and I are doing Sophie Tucker from last week's episode, which if you haven't listened to yet, you should go back and listen to that.
But we're going to do something different. We're going to do something fun and silly with her. We don't know yet what yet, but. And then I'm also that same night at 8:30, I'm at a show that's actually speaking of Puerto Rico, that's a hurricane fundraiser show at it's called Threes at Franklin and Kent.
You guys are raising money for hurricanes?
Yeah, we want more hurricanes. We're pro hurricanes. No, it's for Puerto Rico. And that is at 8:30 on Saturday, January 13th. And then on the 14th, I'm going to be at the Kennedy Center in DC opening for Louis. Yeah, very fancy. Yeah.
Tonight, Monday, January something, January 8th, I'll be at QED at 8:30 in Astoria. On Friday the 12th, I'll be at QED in Astoria at 9:30. And then the caveat show. On Tuesday the 16th, I'll be at Gotham at 9:30. And I think that's an all-female reboot is coming back, baby.
Yeah.
We're gonna be back January 20th at 9:00 at the Tank Theater.
I won't be there, but you should go.
I won't be there, and that's gonna become a monthly show
At the Tank. Yeah, every
at
month.
the Tank, which is very exciting. If you haven't been to the Tank yet, also just like for any of their shows, it's a really cool space.
Yeah.
If you're in New York and you're like, man, this place just isn't what it used to be. It used to be like cool art and like
weird stuff.
Like
cool
under-
for interesting, cool performance stuff.
Yeah, it's like this theater where you would never like. It's a very unsuspecting, like you would never guess that that's inside that building.
Yeah,
and it's really cool.
Yeah.
So that's our podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much, and
Keep making history.